Oh, look at that little car. Wow. Neat. Marketplace here on the main street. What's this big tower here, I wonder? Okay, let's go to the intersection here and then we'll look at the map. Must be a subway that's coming up here, right? What? Oh no. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think this is a train station here. Well, this is the old ancient city wall. It must be one of the towers. Yeah. And here it is. This must be the Nuremberg train station. Okay, Paulette, let's go. Move. Ooh, that's kind of dangerous. Wow. Wow, that was dangerous. Inside the Nuremberg train station, nothing special, I would say. Yeah, I know. We're looking for the museum, a little miniature. Here we are at the train museum, and I'm going to pop in there for a bit just to see the first locomotive is here. The Adler. I think this was the one that was made in Britain and brought here. Wow, this is neat. The Adler train. Oh, the bullet train right beside it, before and after. Wow, this is neat. The Adler train, Germany's first steam engine. Germany's first steam engine, the Adler. It's wonderfully restored here in Nuremberg. And I'm going to go look at some of the coaches. Not sure what this one is. I'll have to look that up later. Another engine. Oh, another old engine here. Amazing. Oh. Well, it's got a big plaque on it here. The Karlsruhe 1863. Phoenix. The Phoenix. Whoa. A royal coach. Beautifully restored. Excuse me. Excuse me. Wow, this is so neat. Boy, if you're a train fan, this is the place for you. Okay. I'd better get out of here and see Nuremberg a bit. I paid €9 to get into this museum just to look at these engines. Oh, modern day coaches. I wonder what this is called. They don't put the name on it like they did the old trains. Maybe they have a post here somewhere. Nice, DB. Back here to the Adler. Right below the tower. So we'll head back up the street. I think we're going to get right back to where our drop-off point is. I hope. But I think so. This is the way we came. hope Paulette is shopping and doesn't lose track of time. She's got 40 minutes left. Subway here. Falafel. Kind of universal. I wonder what kind of trees these are here.
March to the city, the southern part has been the industrial part in Nuremberg. We'll talk about that. We'll then make our way towards the former Nazi Party rally grounds, show you some of the buildings left from the pre-war era, and then make our way through the center of the city to the Palace of Justice. We'll show you where the Nuremberg trials took place after World War II. And then we'll finish the tour on the bus at the Imperial Castle. We'll get off the bus together for a walking tour. The walking tour is about a 45-minute walk downhill over cobblestones. We'll go out on the castle terrace. We'll have a beautiful view over the city. And then start walking down a hill. I'll show you all the highlights in the center of the city. And finish the tour on the main square, where I will say goodbye. Before I do, I will show you where and when you will meet with Sherry for the return back to the ship. That is a little bit about the program. If you have any questions, comments, don't hesitate to ask. If you need the temperature on the bus, change the volume of the microphone, please let us know. I want to make sure that the stand on board of this bus is as comfortable as
what
possible.
This building is here.
Now, since we're still leaving the harbor, it gives me a chance to introduce myself. My introduction is a little different than what you've been hearing from my colleagues in other cities, because I always start with the answer to the question I get asked about 155 times a day, and that is how tall I am. And so here it is. I am 7 feet 2 inches tall, 7'2", 2 meters 15 centimeters. Today on a tour with the tallest tour guide in the world. Congratulations. And of course, I hope that will not be the only thing you will remember about our beautiful city. I have played a little bit of basketball in my life. I was born on the border of Czech Republic and Germany. My father is Czech, my mother is German. I hold a dual citizenship. When I was 16, I took my height and a little bit of talent I had across the ocean to the beautiful state of North Carolina. Spent 2 years there in high school before receiving a basketball scholarship at a small school outside of Charlotte that you've never heard about, called Davidson College. If you have heard about it, it's possibly, well, thank you, no applauded for that. Hopefully you heard about Davidson and its academics. If not, and you're a sports fan, you've probably heard about another basketball player that played at Davidson. His name is Steph Curry, member of the Golden State Warriors, amazing player. I have to say I never met Steph. He's much younger than me, but I do take a lot of credit for his success, of course. Feel free to pat me on the back if you can reach it. I graduated in 2002 with a history degree, moved back to Europe to spend 10 years as a professional basketball player. Played in 10 different countries in 10 years, had a great time. But of course, after 10 years of playing and listening to all the coaches, they're always right, you're always wrong as a player. There's only one thing you can do afterwards, and that is to become a coach. That's what I do now. Coach a local team in this area. But once in a while, I do have to get away from the gym and do something a little different. That's why we get to spend the afternoon together in Nuremberg. Now, we are already in the city, and Nuremberg today is the second largest city in the state of Bavaria, about 500,000 inhabitants. Bavaria is the largest of the 16 federal states that we have here in Germany. And you've probably heard about the largest city in Bavaria, the city of Munich, which is located south of Nuremberg. Now a little over 1.3 million people, quite large by German standards. And now we are already in Nuremberg. The part of the city that we're driving through is called the Garden City. If you look around to your left and right, you can see small apartment buildings. Of course, in between them, lots of green, small gardens, small streets, not too much traffic. And this entire area was started here already in 1900. The original houses are built here around the year 1900 for the workers of the factories that are also located right outside of the Garden City. And still today, very popular. A lot of people want to live here because you have somewhat of a small village feel inside of the Garden City. And you're right outside, so you can get on the Autobahn and drive anywhere you like, but you still are very accessible to the center of the city, where you can drive with or ride with city tram, buses, subway. Now on your right and left right now, you can see the original garden houses, half-timbered houses from 1900. And the name Garden City, of course, obviously comes from the fact that the houses have a little bit of green in front and a much bigger garden in the back. That's where the people back then could grow some vegetables, keep a chicken or two today. People spend their afternoons in the gardens, their weekends. And as we continue to drive, if you look to the left, you can see the inside of the garden city.
Oh.
But you also, what you see is a kind of a combination of old and new. There are not that many of the original houses here anymore. Not because they would be too old or they fell apart. Unfortunately, this part of Nuremberg was heavily bombed because of during the World War II. If you look to the right on the other side of our bus here, on the other side of the fence there, we had, or we still have, the largest shunting yards or switch yard in southern Germany. And then it was the big target for the Allied pilots during World War II. That's why parts of the Garden City were also hit by the bombs and destroyed. Now as we continue, if you look ahead, you will see a quite tall tower. It is the communication tower in Nuremberg, tallest structure in Bavaria. Third tallest in Germany, only the towers in Berlin and Frankfurt are taller than the one here. And you may notice there's an egg-shaped structure almost at the top where we used to have a restaurant up there. And it's been closed for a couple of years now because it was too expensive to operate. But I just read in the newspaper there is a company thinking about reopening the restaurant. And so next time you come to Nuremberg and you enjoy eating at high altitudes while spinning around, you can go up there and enjoy a meal. I have to say, I'll wait for you underneath. I'm not scared of heights, but I do respect them. And so I'm going to go up there.
Oh, the car is up there, yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you're driving through Nuremberg. Of course, as a local, I notice it, but everything's a little slower, not that many people, not so much traffic. The reason is the fact that we are somewhat in the middle of school holidays here in Bavaria. The kids have 2 weeks off, which means a lot of families just left the city, went out of town, took a vacation. And I have to say it's very happy times in our house. My wife and I have 2 boys, 13 and 17, and so as I was leaving this morning, I asked them both what they're gonna do, and of course they said, "Dad, we're gonna chill." So I'm not sure what all that means. I hope the house will still be there when I get back because my wife is out of town, so we'll see. The kids in Bavaria have actually the most school holidays in Germany, and so it's quite nice for the children, not so great for the parents, of course, that have to work. Being rebuilt, or of course new ones are added, and so it's not really that you can get on the Autobahn and drive, I don't know, 150 miles an hour without having to be careful. unfortunately, there is a speed limit for buses, of course, and trucks, 100 kilometers per hour, and so that's not gonna work. Ladies and gentlemen, I talked about the fact that we're driving through industrial part of Nuremberg, and I want to mention some of the big names in this area. As we continue to drive, if you look to the left, you will see a Siemens factory. Maybe you've heard about Siemens before. It's a company that's active all over the world. In Nuremberg, they produce parts of electronic trains and household appliances. And so here you can see the Siemens factory on the left-hand side. What's interesting, Siemens was here before World War II. They actually produced for the Nazis. They produced communication technology and lights for the armored trucks and vehicles. That's why this factory on the left was completely destroyed by the Allied bombings. And another company on the right now is called MAN. MAN stands for Manufacturer Augsburg Nuremberg. This company produces trucks and buses in the city. And we are not on a MAN bus today, but it is interesting talking to the bus drivers about MAN buses, because a lot of them will tell you that the three letters MAN actually stand for maintenance always needed. So that tells you a little bit about the quality of the product. Of course, us Germans, we're so proud of our engineering, but still not always the case. And so you can see the factory now on the right-hand side, of course, quite large. And MAN was also here before World War II. They produced armored trucks and engines for ships and submarines, and that is the reason for that also this factory was completely destroyed during the war and had to be rebuilt. Part of the strategic bombings by the Allies, mostly by US Air Force, done during the day, and this entire southern part of the city was badly damaged. Slowly approaching the former Nazi Party rally grounds. I want to give you a little bit of background information about the topic. The Nazi rallies were propaganda events that took place here in Nuremberg before World War II. And about 500,000 people came to the city for the purpose of the rallies from 1933 to 1938. And of course they came here to listen to speeches of Hitler, to watch the Wehrmacht marches, to take part in the rallies. There are a couple of reasons why Nuremberg was chosen as the city of the Nazi propaganda, and the biggest reason was actually the fact that Hitler claimed he's building an empire that will last over 1,000 years, the Third Reich, and he was very much inspired by the empire that was here before, of course, in the Middle Ages actually, the Holy Roman Empire, when Nuremberg was a very important, wealthy, influential city. And that is the connection Hitler was trying to make. Of course, the geographical position of the city on a map of Germany played an important role, because it wasn't as difficult to bring so many people here. And the last but also important reason was the fact there was a quite large Nazi movement in the city already before World War II, led by Julius Streicher, one of the local Nazi leaders. And so those are the reasons why Nuremberg was chosen. The Nazis had huge plans here. They wanted to build different buildings for different parts of the Nazi regime. Majority of those buildings, the construction on them never even started. Some were started, and only few of them were completely finished and used for the purpose of the rallies, and those are the buildings that we will show you today on our tour. So, if you now start looking to your right, you will see a building built out of red brick limestone windows. This is the first Nazi building on our tour. We are now passing the former SS barracks. Building built for the most brutal force of the Nazi regime, used by the SS until the end of World War II, when the American Army took this building. They renamed it Merrill Barracks because of Sergeant Joseph Merrill, a war hero, unfortunately died at the end of the war here in Nuremberg. They used this building, then the US Army then used this building until the unification of Germany, when they gave this building back to the German government. And today this building hosts the Federal Bureau of Immigration. So what a great way of using a former Nazi building. because Hitler would not be pleased at all that people from other countries, other religions, other races come to his building, and here it is decided whether they get to stay in Germany or they go back home to their country of origin. Now, as we're making a right turn, I do want to show you something amazing, because on the right hand side right now, you can see the biggest chair in Nuremberg. Amazing, right? The chair, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, has nothing to do with the Nazis. You could claim it was built for Hitler because he was a huge behind, but not the case. Just a marketing tool of a local furniture store that's here on the corner. Nazi Party rally grounds. I have to break the rules of tour guiding a little bit. I'm going to talk about something that doesn't exist anymore. If you look to the left, you can see just trees, grass, and but this was supposed to be the location of the biggest sports stadium in the world that the Nazis planned to build here. The stadium would be able to hold over 420,000 people. It would by far be the largest one in the world. And again, the construction on it never even started. They planned eventually to have the Olympics here in Nuremberg, but before the Olympics, they would hold what they called would be the German military games. And so some of the events that would take place here would be, for example, throw in a wooden hand grenade as far as possible, swim in a full army uniform, military uniform, also one of the events here. And so those would be the military games here in Nuremberg, but again, the construction of the stadium never even started. We're driving through a part of the city that's called Langwasser. Langwasser was built here on the top of the former Nazi Party rally grounds, which means none of the buildings that you're seeing around here were here before World War II. The only thing that you would see here back then, of course, were wooden barracks for the workers that worked on the buildings, and forced labor was already used. The Dachau concentration camp, for example, is already in operation, and so political prisoners, for example, worked on the buildings on the rally grounds here. As we continue on the left-hand side, you can see some railway tracks of the Nuremberg's underground, the subway system, U-Bahn as we call it here, and outside of the city, the subway is on the ground. The closer it gets to the center, goes underground, and we have 3 lanes of the subway. One of them is actually driverless. The one that goes to the airport is without a driver. Quite an interesting feeling standing in front of the first car looking at a dark tunnel. I have to say, a long time ago, my wife and I used to spend hours in the subway because our sons loved to ride back and forward and stare into the dark tunnel. So all the things we do for our children, right? You can see the fairgrounds here in Nuremberg. We have lots of international fairs. For example, still today we have the largest toy fair in the world in Nuremberg, which is quite an interesting event because there are toys on display, but there are no children allowed. You must be 16 years and older to be able to visit the toy fair in Nuremberg. Interesting, right? So, as we continue, we're going to drive through 2 traffic lights ahead, and if you look to the left, you can already start looking to your left, you can see a long road. The long road is called Große Straße, designed and built by Albert Speer for the Wehrmacht marches. And if you look all the way to the left, Dieter is slowing down for us so we don't have the truck here. If you look all the way to the left, to the back of the road, you can see the 2 towers of the Imperial Castle in the center of the city. And so Speer designed the Große Straße so that the soldiers, as they marched, they had the view of the Imperial Castle, again connecting the 2 empires. He went as far as building the Große Straße out of stone blocks, and the stone blocks were the size of an average man 2 steps. And so as they marched, of course, they could time their steps and they looked like a unit. And after World War II, the US Army used the Große Straße as a landing strip, and then today it is just a huge parking lot. to drive, and we're going to show you possibly the most famous Nazi building, because the Zeppelin Field with the Zeppelin Tribune is one of the few buildings completely finished and used for a majority of the rallies, which means if you've ever seen any of the propaganda films and movies from the pre-war era, then I'm sure you also saw the Zeppelin Field. It's ahead of our bus right now. We will drive around, so you will be able to see it from both sides of our bus. Right now, ahead of our bus, you can see the Zeppelin Tribune. Of course, today looks much different because back then there was a gold-plated swastika on top of the building. It was blown up in April 1945 by American Army. There were also pillars on both sides above the seats here, and but you can still see the original podium where Hitler stood and gave his speeches, and there was space for 160,000 people in the seats and on the field itself. And here on the right hand side you can see the towers that were used as toilets or storage areas. Or turn around so you can also see it from the other side of the bus. And again, that's where majority of the rallies took place from 1933 to 1938. We had, of course, the speeches of the Nazi elites, Hitler, Goebbels, Hess, all of those, of course, held their speeches on that podium, and different events took place here, Wehrmacht marches, mock battles also, and this is again the building that was completely finished and used for majority of the rallies before World War II. Now, of course, I talked about the bombings of World War II in the southern part of the city because of the industry. We will shortly mention the bombings in the center of the city because it was part of the morale bombings or carpet bombings. But you may be asking yourself, why are the SS barracks still here? Why is the Zeppelin Field still here? The Tribune? Why did the Allies destroy it also? But the answer is very simple. They did not want to waste their ammo because there was no production here, no factories in this area, no one really lived here, and that's why they would only waste their bombs that they could use elsewhere. And that is the reason why these buildings are still here, which today is quite a topic and a problem in Nuremberg because these buildings are huge. They are falling apart, and every year millions of euros must be invested just to keep these buildings here, keep them safe, so they do not fall apart. And so every year, especially before election year, we always have, of course, a big conversation. Should we keep these buildings here, or should we tear them down and do something more positive with this area? But the question has not been answered yet. We'll see what the future holds. Keep looking to the left. See the last Nazi building on our tour. This building provided electricity for the Nazi rallies here on the left-hand side. There were diesel engines on the inside, and today it is the only Nazi Burger King in the world. Soccer, as you see here on the right-hand side. The local soccer team has a soccer camp here on the right. And we are leaving the former Nazi Party rally grounds. I want to give you, of course, more information about our beautiful city. And a couple times already talked about the Holy Roman Empire, where Nuremberg was a very important city. And the first mentioning of our city we have is from 1050. We do know that 1050, actually there is a document where for the first time you can read the word Nurenberg. And actually this document allowed a peasant woman to marry a nobleman. And so the beginning of our city is actually a love story. Her name was Sigena. That's why the document is called the Sigena document. From then, Nuremberg developed into a very wealthy city, and a couple of reasons why. Of course, the geographical position this time on a map of Europe played an important role because Nuremberg was a merchant city, Anytime merchants came here from Prague to Paris, from Venice, all the way up to Vienna even, or Prague again, anytime they traded their goods, they had to pay taxes. That was one of the ways that the city generated income. Then quality products were produced here already in the Middle Ages. Nuremberg was known for its toys, as I've already said, or weapons. And so, of course, here, this is how money was made. And another quite interesting reason for the city's success is actually beer. Because in Nuremberg, beer was brewed all year long. The reason for that were the beer cellars that were dug underneath the castle inside of a sandstone rock already in the 14th century. And because the fermentation process only happens in cool temperatures, Nuremberg was allowed to brew beer all year long. And of course, more beer was brewed, more beer was sold, more money was made. And so those are some of the reasons for the city's success. As we continue, coming up on the left-hand side will be quite a large building with dark windows. This is the Federal Bureau of Employment in Nuremberg, and all the federal institutions in Germany are spread across the country. They are not centralized in Berlin. Anytime you read the unemployment numbers in Germany, this is where they come from this building on the left-hand side. Pleasure to show you here on the left-hand side your first and the largest church on your vacation in Europe, right? Not the first one. The Church of St. Peter's here in the southern part of the city. Of course, if you're interested in churches, don't worry. We will see some beautiful ones on our walking tour. But now, as we continue, I do want to mention one of the most important dates in the history of the city of Nuremberg, the year 1835. Because in 1835, the first train in Germany took off from Nuremberg to the neighboring city of Fürth. The train was bought in England, brought here to Nuremberg. It was called Adler or Eagle. And if you now look to your right, you can see some railway tracks and trains on the right. And the city was, of course, very happy that they have the first train. They celebrated, but there were also problems at the beginning. The biggest problem they had was that they had a train, but they didn't have anyone who knew how to drive it. And so they had to bring in someone from the outside. His name was Sir William Wilson. He was a Scotsman and the first driver of the first train. And so they brought him here, first problem solved, but then there were other complications. For example, the people here, the locals, were scared to ride a train, and they were scared because the physicians, the doctors back then used to tell the people that their heads would explode if they rode a train. The reason for that was the amazing speed of 15 miles an hour or 24 kilometers. And so, of course, already back then it was important to get a second opinion. But the locals, of course, wanted desperately to ride a train. They decided to test it. One of the first rides, they actually put 2 kegs of Bavarian beer on the train as cargo. They tested it. At the end of the ride, they opened the keg, they tapped the keg, they tried the beer was good, and the rest is history here. Today, Nuremberg is a transportation hub in Europe because, again, of its location right in the middle. Not only personal trains, but also cargo trains come through here every day and go through the city of Nuremberg. Now, we are already in the center. If you look ahead, you can see one of the 4 oval towers, part of the defensive system from the late 16th century. This one is called the King's Tower. And when you now look to your left, you can see the main train station in Nuremberg, another beautiful building built in 1905. Of course, great location right outside of the city walls. If you look to the right, you can see the city wall here. Nuremberg has the most preserved city wall in a major European city. The wall is 3 miles or 5 kilometers long, surrounds the entire center of the city. The first part of the defensive system is the deep moat that you can also see from your position a little higher.
Oh yeah.
Took a picture.
Oh, down here. Oh yeah.
Bridge.
Oh yeah. Oh, I missed that when I walked across. Thought it was water in there.
Oh no, not here.
Not here. Further down the other side.
Coming up on the left-hand side as we continue to drive is Nuremberg's Opera House on the left, quite large, beautiful building. Also built in 1905 with elements of Art Nouveau style here on the left. But of course on the right-hand side you can still see the city wall with the small towers that were part of the defensive system. And we have 77 of those towers still today in Nuremberg, and we use majority of them still today. A lot of the towers are used by the different organizations of the city. There are some towers that have apartments on the inside, and so you can rent an apartment in a medieval tower in Nuremberg. Of course the space on the inside is limited, but if you enjoy playing your music really loud, that is the place for you, because the walls are very thick.
Yeah. Moat.
Now as we continue, we are driving to the Palace of Justice. We have to drive in the direction of the neighboring city of Fürth just for a little bit. I'm sure you've never heard about Fürth before. City much smaller than Nuremberg, only about 130,000 people. If you have heard about it, it is possibly because of its most famous citizen, a little boy was born in Fürth before World War II. His family was Jewish, and so they left Nazi Germany. They moved to the United States. There, the little boy went on to make a stellar career in politics, later becoming a Secretary of State in the US. His name was Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger was born in Fürth, and he would come back very often. He would visit. He was a big fan of the soccer team in Fürth also. And he was a very interesting person to many different people for many different reasons. For us tour guides in Nuremberg, one of the reasons why he was interesting was the fact that he still had a very heavy accent when he spoke, even though he spent a majority of his life in the US. And we try to figure out why would that be? Why would he still have such a heavy accent? And to be honest, the only reason we could come up with was actually his occupation. You see, as a politician, he only talked, right? He never listened. Hope that's not too harsh.
That's good. That's good.
Still today, we do have a rivalry between the two cities, Nuremberg and Fürth. The rivalry started already in the Middle Ages because of a river that flows through the center of Nuremberg and continues through the center of Fürth. And the river is very small, not a navigable river. It's called Pegnitz. In Middle Ages, people used rivers as waste disposal areas. They threw their trash in the river. And so whatever was thrown in a river in Nuremberg would come up in Fürth. People there did not like it. That's why still today we have a saying in Fürth that nothing good ever comes out of Nuremberg. And so that is the beginning of the rivalry. The rivalry then continues with soccer, because both cities have teams, and anytime they play each other, police escorts are needed for the fans. And there is another reason why this rivalry will not end anytime soon, and the reason is kind of strange. Because the reason are the license plates of the cars that you see here driving are parked on the side of the road. Alright, sorry. Somebody just tried to cut us off. And and so if you see a license plate here, you can see cars where the license plates start with the letter N because the cars are registered in Nuremberg. However, you can find some cars that are registered in Fürth. Their license plates then start with two letters, the letter F and the letter U. I feel like you already know where I'm going with this. Anytime the citizens of Fürth drive to Nuremberg, they're bringing their message with them. This rivalry will not stop anytime soon. Peter actually lives in Fürth, so he always tells me to be careful, but you'll see for yourself. We're slowly approaching the former, or not the former, but the Palace of Justice where the Nuremberg trials took place after World War II. And the reason why Nuremberg was chosen for the city of trials is actually has nothing to do with the propaganda history of the city before the war. The reason is very practical. After World War II, the Nuremberg was one of the few cities in Germany with a mainly undestroyed courthouse and a prison attached to it. And that is the reason why it was chosen. It was very practical for the Allies to keep the Nazi criminals in their jail cells, walk them through a corridor inside of an elevator, and ride an elevator to courtroom 600 where the trials took place. And so, one more traffic light coming up, and then on the right hand side, if you look to the right, you will see a white building that's called Cube 600. Once we pass that building, there is a street on the right hand side. If you look to the back of the street, you will see the east wing of the Palace of Justice where the Nuremberg trials took place. As you see, Dieter is slowing down for us. Here's the white building, and the street is coming up on the right. Here is the east wing where the trials took place. When we talk about Nuremberg trials, we mostly talk about the International Military Tribunal, the first trial that took place here from the end of 1945 to 1946, 11 months, and that's where the Allies wanted to bring the biggest Nazi names to justice for crimes committed during World War II. Of course, it was obvious that it was not going to happen. Hitler committed suicide in his bunker in Berlin a couple days before the Red Army came to the city. Joseph Goebbels, propaganda minister, also committed suicide in Berlin together with his wife. Heinrich Himmler, the leader of the SS, also committed suicide while in British captivity. And so some of the biggest names were missing. There were still, however, big names on trial here. The leader of the Nazi Air Force, the Luftwaffe, Hermann Göring, was on trial here. Rudolf Hess, Albert Speer, Hitler's architect, or Admiral Dönitz was also on trial here. And the first trial lasted 11 months. At the end of the trial, there were 3 acquittals, 7 prison sentences, and 12 death sentences. The death sentences were carried out by hanging in a prison gym at a prison yard here in Nuremberg. The bodies of the executed criminals were taken to Munich area. They were cremated, and the ashes were spread in an undisclosed location in a valley of the Isar River. There are no graves. The Allies didn't want to create a place of worship for neo-Nazis. Courtroom 600 still had 12 subsequent trials in it, and then it was returned to the state of Bavaria that used it as a courtroom for until about 5 years ago when they turned it into a museum of the trials. And so we still have the courtroom here. There's a museum on the inside. We still have an active prison on the other side of the courthouse. So we're gonna make a right turn. You can see a brand new fire station. It was just built here a couple of years ago. On the right hand side, we're gonna make a right turn and continue towards the center of the city. As we turn, if you keep looking to your right, you will see above the prison wall the only original building of the prison from the times of the trials. You can see it here on the right hand side right now coming up. The rest of the buildings were torn down right after the trials. And again, it's still an active prison for people with short sentences and women. Quite an interesting location of the prison also, because there's a prison here, and the next building that's coming up, which we will see in a second, is a local high school right next to the prison. And on the other side of the high school, we have a brewery with a beautiful beer garden. I'm not sure if you noticed, but the legal age for drinking beer in Germany is 16. So what a combination of buildings here in one place. Prison, high school, brewery. And as we continue, now we're passing the high school. If you look, keep looking to your right, I want to show you something very typically German coming up on the right hand side. It's an Aldi grocery store. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Aldi's. You are. Well, let's compare the level of service in your Aldi and the Aldi here in Germany, because here in Germany, when you go shopping in Aldi, you have to put a coin in a shopping cart to be able to use it. It's the same. Okay. Wow. Of course, when you're paying, nobody bags your bags, nobody takes them out to the car. In a German Aldi, you have to do it yourself. Also, very German-like. Well, interesting. And what is even more interesting is Aldi stands for Albrecht Discount. And the Albrecht brothers, the founders of this chain, were once listed on Forbes' top 10 wealthiest people in the world as they're billionaires. With that said, you can see how far you can actually get in Germany with offering no service at all. For a long time, Germany was known as the service desert. So as we continue towards the center, there's one more beautiful place we want to show you before arriving at the castle. Already on the right hand side, you can see the wall of St. John's Cemetery, one of the oldest cemeteries in Nuremberg from 1234. And we're going to make a right turn. You'll be able to look inside. When it comes to cemeteries, we do things a little different in Germany. In Germany, you do not buy a grave, you rent one. You can rent a grave at St. John's for 10 or 20 years. Part of your rental contract is that you must take care of the grave, keep it clean, bring flowers, or you can pay someone to do it for you. And so, as we make a right turn from our position, you'll be able to look inside, and I think you will agree with me that it's an absolutely beautiful walk through the cemetery this time of the year because of all the flowers and decorations. And what you may also notice, the graves here are also almost all same size, which was another medieval regulation that stated that we can be all as wealthy as possible during our lives, but we will be the same in death. That's why the graves are same size, which on one hand is really beautiful, right? On the other hand, sometimes you do have to wonder what happened to the people that were a little taller than the average guy, right? Please, no suggestions. I have heard some horrible things here already.
Oh, look at that.
Ooh, I do not know how many people are dead there. That's true. I don't know how many graves there are. Oh, that's a great answer. Yeah, all of them are dead that are there. That's true. I like it. Well, hold up. No one. We have a shy group. Nobody wants to know what happens after 10 or 20 years. Hey, I'm gonna tell you anyway. Well, it's a bad situation. That situation. Well, the cemetery officials will contact you. They will ask whether you want to rent again, which majority people do. And after some time, of course, if they cannot find anyone, they will dig up whatever is left in the grave. They put it in a mass grave and re-rent the original grave. Yeah, it's a little different, I know. That's why in Germany we don't really use the phrase "rest in peace." Pretty much say "rest while you pay." And now we continue to drive, and we are back in the center of the city. Ahead of our bus you can see another one of the oval towers. This one is called the New Tower. What is interesting about the 4 big towers in Nuremberg is that if you would have x-rayed the towers, you would have found another tower on the inside, and the one on the inside is rectangular. The reason for that is that the invention of gunpowder changed a lot when it came to defending the cities. The engineers that were responsible for the defensive systems figured out that if a cannonball hits a flat surface, it does a lot of damage. If it hits a round surface, it doesn't do as much damage, or it just bounces off. That's why they built oval towers on top of the rectangular ones. And that proved quite useful during the bombings of World War II because people found shelter in those towers. Now we are driving up to the Castle Rock to go, of course, to the castle. I want to talk about organization one more time. Once we arrive there in about 5 minutes, we will get off the bus together. We'll start our walk-in tour. For the walk-in tour, we will need our audio devices. I hope everybody has their device with them on channel 13. If you have any trouble with your device, please let me know. I have some extras here in case more devices are not working. Also, not a problem. As a basketball coach, I have no trouble with screaming. We can also do it without the devices. Just in case you hear me scream something like "get on the line" and start sprinting, please ignore that. That just comes with the territory. But we will then start our walk-in tour. We'll get off the bus and we will first go out to the castle terrace, have a beautiful view over the city. We'll have a restroom break at the castle. We'll then start walking down the hill over cobblestones. We'll take our time. We will, of course, see all the highlights in the center of the city. Then we'll finish the tour on the main square where I will say goodbye. Before I do, I will show you where and when you will meet for the return back to the bus. And of course, then you will start your free time. You will still have about an hour and a half of free time in the center of the city, of course, on this beautiful, beautiful afternoon. A couple of seconds, we'll stop the bus at the castle, we'll get off the bus together and meet on the sidewalk before we start with the walk-in tour. After your free time, you're coming back to the same bus, which means if you have brought a jacket and you don't feel like bringing it with you, you can leave it on the bus. You're coming back to the same bus that will bring you back to the ship. On the left-hand side, already now you can see first parts of the Imperial Castle. 2 watchtowers. The building between the towers with 6 rows of window used to be a granary. Today serves as an international youth hostel. So here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you on the sidewalk. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, Wisconsin, you know, that's right. That's right. That's it. So,
I remember Davis as well.
so, this. So, ladies and gentlemen, everyone hear me? Channel 13. Excellent. But the first thing is the science, the bicycle.
Да, сказали.
So, I talked about the medieval part of the city. This is it. The 3 miles or 5 kilometers of city wall. And this we left the city for a little bit to show you the Palace of Justice. And we are right now here at the castle. We will go inside of the castle, start walking down the hill. We'll make a couple of turns and we'll finish here. Number 1 is the main square. That is where we'll say goodbye. Before I do, I'll show you where and when we will meet with the news director again. That's where also we're going to floss, so I have to walk back up to get here. Right next to the
Okay. So, what was the purpose of the wall? Who were they attacking?
yeah. Well, at the beginning, Nuremberg, before this was actually then from the 15th century. We had a smaller one before, and Nuremberg within Bavaria were small. I wouldn't call them kingdoms, but there were people who owned property and they wanted to have more. And so that was the beginning. And then Nuremberg, of course, also 15th, 16th century, they just put up walls. So the Swedes were, of course, here attacking. 30-year War was also here. But once this wall was put in, we'll talk about it later, the city was never taken by an enemy. So it had a reputation and a strong war. Anything else? 7 minutes?
Yep.
And so, you already can see the palace off the castle. Early 1050, we had some kind of a fort near the castle. And we do not know what it looked like. We do know as the castle expanded, other times it burned down to the ground because of fire to get out of hand, not because of an enemy attack. This system was added at the end of 16th century. And never had any water down there. It's always been a dry. It's the reason why. About the water, the water will always disappear, even if they try to change it. But for us, there's other water motions. We have an alligator problem here in Nuremberg. When you look down to the bottom of the valleys, you can see window-like openings. The window-like openings have a hallway in them. So the fingers in the gas station, they just keep it anyway. That was on the bottom of the nick. Because the walls have different colors on another straight lines. Maybe they're different. The defenders, though, it's very good.
Dale bola radio,
Which was another part of the defensive system. About their ventilation, you'll shoot down on this. Liquids, of course, When we talk about the castles, are in Wales. Stuff that is available. That's terrible.
Was geschafft. Ja.
Yeah. Those are not from World War II. They're part of the defense of how we put walls here together. And I lift them up on top of each other. Look at this picture right here. You can see they put holes on both sides of the stone. And then as they pulled up on the wall, they put pressure on the stone. That's how they were able to lift them up on top of each other. The reason why it's interesting here is if you look, there's stones with holes in them. Is richer. So have to look along the sides. Jeez.
Weil ihr Tier bei Rocker war Bürger gegen die Leute.
Ja, mas peguei lá.
Hätte kann beide gemacht schon
Well, we had different emperors. There was several places like this. The state wow. Churches, oh yeah, stains off the whole town. And of course, they don't go to church. It was just funny. So, ladies and gentlemen, this picture right here is again the old town. We're standing at the very top. That's where the settlement started. Right? And that's where it started down towards the river. And so this is what we're looking at right now. Today, the population inside of this circle is 12,000. Of course, we have offices, shopping centers, museums, and of course, today, not so many people would live in one house. The population around the year 1500 at speed of the city of Nuremberg was around 40,000 people that lived inside of this circle. So the city was too crowded. Of course, several families in one house, no cobblestones. They threw trash all in the river, just on the street, animals everywhere.
And so it was really not romantic at all here. Obviously, you can go as far as saying it's pretty nasty inside of the city was. And so now I do want to go back to the topic of World War II just a little bit. I talked about the morale bombs. Makes Nuremberg was a big target for the Allied pilots. And they concentrated in the center of the city. The picture I'm about to show you was taken from this same place, from this theater. After World War II, this is the view that you would have. 90% of the old town was gone after World War II. Second largest destruction in Germany after Dresden, which is in, of course, was used to be East Germany. And so 90%, 90 of the city was gone. And so as you look at this picture and then you look back out on the city, you realize, hey, look at the medieval city. We're looking at Viking stuff here. And, but it's still somewhat original because as the city was destroyed, of course, the city officials saw the destruction. The first thought was to leave it here as a monument, building Nurenberg somewhere else. Then they decided it would be a shame and history was such a rich history of the city. First, of course, also how to first thought were, let's make it a German city, really right angles everywhere, high skyscrapers, maybe Frankfurt or we've been, but hopefully, fortunately, that did not happen. And so they decided that if there was anything left from the house, a couple of stones, they would try to rebuild it. They reopened medieval quarries. They also able to use the churches. From the museums, for example, and looking at all the buildings, the decorations, statues of saints, windows, everything was taken off from at least before World War II, but actually stuck underneath the castle. Bunker, medieval beer cellar, and of course that's where it survived the bombings of World War II, and then was used for rebuilding the city. It's somewhat original. Any questions?
So how much of this was damaged?
The castle, I can show you already. According to source, 60 to 80% of the castle was going ahead.
Oh, really?
So, this is what it looked like. But if you look at the tower behind me, it's called the Citadel Tower.
Oh my God, he needs oxygen when you get that high.
Yeah.
Imagine him sitting in the back of the plane. Yeah, I think I'd pay extra for leg room.
2 seats.
Yeah.
Artificial grass.
Yeah. No, I don't know if it is. I thought so at first too. It might be real. I'm not sure. What do you think? Real or fake?
It looks real.
I know. Looks real.
It looks real.
Yeah, I think it's real. When you first look at it, it looks fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taste it.
Yeah. Graze it a bit. Graze it.
For a price, right?
Yeah.
Boy, the women's lineup is a little long, eh?
I know.
Jeez. Not enough stalls.
You got in early. On medication. I think we've gone through. I hope. I think we've.
At times, yeah, there's you feel it's going like theory. I think that's changed now a little bit too because I think they're kind of clearing out the
Right.
a little bit.
Picture of the destroyed castle. The castle said we are in a couple of questions. Who built the castle and when? Those are very difficult questions to answer here in Nuremberg because this castle is the castle of the emperors of the Holy Roman Empire. Jews. The Holy Roman Empire is such a huge emperors traveled all the time. They never stayed in one place permanently in order to govern that empire. And so the castle of Nuremberg, for the most part, it was empty. There was not even furniture on the inside. And when the emperor came here, British patricians from the bottom of the city had to bring their own furniture and furnish the castle for the emperor.
Wow.
That's why it's difficult for us to connect one ruling family to the castle of Nuremberg, and that's why it's hard to say also, of course, from what time this castle, when it was built, because different parts were built in different times. As we look around, we believe this is what the castle looked like around the year 1600, but again, with the bombings and the rebuilding, it had to be simplified a lot. Now, I do want to talk shortly about the tower here, because it is one that survived the bombing. Several towers, several years ago in medieval Germany. The tower was built not as a watchtower. toast is a place of refuge. That's why they would make it all up here. In order for that to be effective, the entrance was not on the bottom. That is not the original entrance because the enemy would come and break the door and go up and then the original entrance was. If you look halfway up, we have to move a little bit. Halfway up, right in front of us, you can see two stones are a different color than the rest. That's where even the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire would have climbed with a rope or a ladder. He would then pull the rope and no one else would walk there. He would have enough to eat, to drink, a couple of servants, and that is the original purpose of the single tower. Later on, it was turned into a watchtower. For enemies, fire was being tried to prevent the city's items with that timber. That's where it was going to be. Today, of course, you can use the door on the bottom, go all the way up, have a beautiful view from the top. I will, however, try to convince you that the half of the task is about the same. Because I've been up there one time I was going out it's one time.
Yeah, right.
I just went really up with some of the service. So, again, the single tower, one of the two buildings that the castle. Today, the castle still is a museum. Sometimes film productions come here to film their movies here, but we do have a museum on the inside. Again, I should have told it right, but to be honest, some of the rooms, even in the museums, are empty because that's the way it is. Any questions? Oh, what's it going to do? You gotta tell me what you think.
Okay.
See, I always put my paddle here in my bag, right? So I'm standing in the main square on the back, and all of a sudden I feel something in my bag. That's what I can do. I turned, I hit a lady in her eye with this.
Oh no!
Because her husband was behind me, and he was thinking we shouldn't be in her together. She didn't tell me she was right behind me, and so it wasn't my fault. Pictures, no problem. Just please let me know. Plus, let me just have everybody's foot. Wait, since I'm playing anymore.
Well done. Well done.
You got to get a picture with him, Paulette.
Asked me if I needed some help, but she seems tough on my hand with her fuse. Halfway up, I was begging her to help me, of course. And as we get to the top of the rules, there is no beer garden. No place that was nice and now wasn't there, so
Well, as long as you didn't let go of the stroller.
no, if you look here tall, you can see the windows.
Vom Altstadtring, Hotel Sachszimmer, Kettensteg,
Apartment in the medieval castle.
Yeah.
If you're a practical person like myself, you're immediately thinking about bringing heavy groceries,
Yeah.
sit down and realize you forgot to buy milk.
Yeah.
I will acknowledge. Yes, right.
Yep.
Appreciate the acknowledgement.
You can see a sandstone wall. The castle is built on. name Nurenberg is actually a city on a rock.
On a rock? Wow.
Are they concerned because of sandstone that will ever erode?
I don't think they, of course, do tests, but I'm not sure if I don't think they're concerned as much as it's really a layer. Yeah. So make a right turn.
Right here?
Take your time again. You're still walking. Don't worry. If you don't see me, everyone on the bottom in the shade. These steps also, sir.
So the roofs are unique to your home?
No. Also Bavaria. Yeah, these very steep. So you only put them on top of each other. They don't glue them together, or they don't put anything in between.
Oh, really? They just put them right out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Some have insulation, so those that have apartments with windows do have insulation, but our house, for example, doesn't, because we don't have an apartment up there.
Okay. So it doesn't get that cold?
It does get cold, but yeah.
You're tough.
They're tough, but okay, the flat part is insulated. The roof itself is not.
Okay.
So, but still here, of course, the cost of living has been going up, and I'm sure everywhere in the world it seems like. And but even here, but in Nuremberg, you still can find, I wouldn't say cheap, but affordable living.
Right.
The problem with it is most of the time, of course, the apartments on the roofs that in buildings were built without elevators, without air conditioning up there. So some day it's hot, day it is really hot. And you have to be able to go. You're ready to go up and down a couple times a day, steps. So save some money for the gym, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, good cat workout, absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, so right now, last time, this not so nice picture that I want to show you. You guys already see, if you look where my finger is, right here, you can see the house that survived the bombing, right? And if you look around this area, then maybe you'll see it. Yeah, you already see it, exactly. That house right here is the one that's here in this picture. So we have no idea why. We have no idea what religion were the people that lived there. And, so
That is so neat.
It's still privately owned, and people live there. There's our apartments in there. So it's is it not working? Your device?
Oh, I.
No, I plugged it a little bit. Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
slowly continue this way. Gingerbread. Remember, we made gingerbread all year long, not just for Christmas. We remember here goes new ingredients.
Ja, okay, so machen wir's. Geil.
Also nuts from this area, from the trees, along the forest here, and the spices that are here from the merchants all over the world already in the wages.
Do you have gingerbread houses too?
It's not
Not a big thing?
gingerbread houses, but
Yeah.
it's not something that I wouldn't say that's really popular.
Is that right? Yeah. Hansel and Gretel?
Yeah, I think that's
Not gingerbread houses.
gingerbread houses.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh well. Wow.
Emblem is this is the emblem sign of Nuremberg.
Oh, that's their sign. Here to say.
So, ladies and gentlemen, now we are at the zoo. This is the sea wall on the other side of the wall. The reason why I put them there, of course, it's impossible. Actually let the animals loose. Hunting on the next sounds unfair to the animals. And so the reason we stop here, of course, is history. You see already people sitting in the cobblestones. And the reason we stop here is because the house behind me, right there, is the house of before Renaissance paint lived in a room with pretty much numbers of many people. Lived in this house with his wife Agnes around the year 1500. And this is how he saw himself. All the pictures of Alder that we have, he himself painted. Truly the first sons ever. Of course, when you look at this picture, imagine that Alder back then was a craftsman. He was not really a fencer, but an artist, especially early in his career. And so he made himself, of course, a better living if you think of how a lot of times Jesus is portrayed in pictures, a bit of similarity. So, this house, I'll show you some of his works. We have no origins in this house. That's why we have the modern interpretation of the picture of the rabbit statue here. I have to say, I personally dislike, but I'm no expert on modern art. And so this.
So which house?
The one there.
Okay.
And here, also one more. What's also interesting, he is buried at St. John's Cemetery, the one that we drove by. If you remember, I told you what happens. Of course, I don't pay rent, right? It's also that's why the finest person in the world in New Zealand which means who would pay the rent? Well, Arbiter was such a celebrity that he told us that it was like the city of Nuremberg could never allow anything to happen to this grave. And they will stay where they are. and nothing. We do have a museum inside of the house. The house is original, so the windows were destroyed by the shockwave of the bombs, but the house is original. Any questions?
I wonder if these are wet when it rains, or slippery when they're wet.
Oh, I bet they're really wet.
I bet.
Yes. And I'm not quite wearing the proper shoes.
Oh yeah. Well, you don't have high heels anyway.
No, I don't have high heels. Or, yeah, if it's raining or icy, this would not be good.
No.
Is a rabbit for it?
Well, he painted a rabbit, and he was known for that rabbit painting. And that statue was there for him for dedication of the rabbit. That he.
We saw a different
Did you get a picture of that rabbit?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, but we saw more.
He said he takes size 17 shoes. Did you hear that?
Yep.
I wonder who that is.
So Doer's part of.
The same guy that I talked about, the painter. Yeah.
Oh, the painter.
Yeah, you'll see him all over Nurenberg. It's really the person.
I missed it.
With a selfie? Yeah. What's the difference between Lebkuchen and Pfefferkuchen?
One more time.
Lebkuchen
Yeah.
and Pfefferkuchen.
Well, Pfefferkuchen, I would say it's another name. They call it Pfeffercakes before they call them Lebkuchen.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a, to be honest, I don't know if there's a
If there isn't, it might be the same thing.
Because you can get Lebkuchen with chocolate, without chocolate. You can get it with, they put it in the wort.
Oh, that would be me.
They put them on, it's like
You need to wear the
it's
cup.
not a waffle. It's
You need to wear that.
it's like a white thing that they just bake them on, put them on. My wife makes it.
Easter only knew.
Sure. So some you can make it with, without chocolate, with just icing on it. Different types of meat. Just douse her off. The person who owns this take it to the house. Built the entire house. It was a very expensive building material, and the bottom is built on stone for secure reason. That's what I was. And as we see, they were applied to cover the holes of course in the stone here. But when you look at the house, it doesn't really look. The reason why city council is looking at all the left, they were afraid of problems with it. And so what was allowed is a sundial. You can see on the wall here, statues of saints, which you see in the corner, big windows with English windows that stuff from the facade. There's a few the trees here didn't work. It's not so that's a good person. Or the ground. So the vision. Right. So those are the three ways that you could decorate your house, even though if you had the ones to out. Then the house survived the bombings in World War II. If you look on the ground, you know, so you can see the outline of the building. This used to be the Lord's church. The building was completely destroyed by the bombs. There was nothing but it. That's why the outline. Now, St. Sebald Church, we also saw from that. Look at it now, of course, beautiful park and tree in St. Sebald. He was very real. And that left was amazing stories about him. He was able to make a blind man see. He could turn ice into fire. Real in a story about his death. He found his death was a and yet the oxen pulled the wagon. Wherever they stopped, they should build a church. It was over a single location. Now, of course, you know, it's just a story. There was a church but it was important for everything. The stories are more and more unbelievable because more unbelievable they were. They came here more business. They had football sense several times. Unfortunately, during World War II, the church was almost because of the towers were badly damaged, but we still have the tomb of St. Sebald on the inside. The tomb is twice as tall as I am. It's quite large. That's why it was not moved from the church. It stayed on the inside, but the locals actually built a shell out of concrete around it. So it's still inside the church. What is also original are all of the windows that you see here from the outside and the inside. They're very colorful, very beautiful. the church itself, the ancient, it was a Catholic church before the Reformation, of course. Decorations were paid for by the locals. As the Reformation came, the locals didn't go in and destroy everything they paid for. So it's still, it's a Lutheran church today, still very cool. Sorry. If you want to see the entrance, it's on the east side. This door, and you go in and see the three Jerusalem. So definitely worth it.
Spell his name.
Sebald. S-A-L-D. Sebald. Saint Sebaldus.
There's a picture. When we were in this church on a later day, they show a picture of it. How hard
There you go.
it's not. It's not.
The building is to make a church it's called Working. That's the name of the unfortunately, work is more last story before. So this is the old town. Originally, this building was in six the physicians, the members of the city council, were pretty much inherited from family. It was not very democratic, but it brought stability to the city. And what is interesting, of course, the members of the city council were seen certainly by citizens of the city. That's why they decorated the town hall. And even though these are replicas and very good replicas of the decorations, we're standing in the front of the main entrance. If you look above the entrance, you can see the imperial eagle, the bird that you have seen it in the city, so we'll see it. Then to the right is wisdom. Wisdom has a mirror on her hand because she self-reflects as wise, like the English council. Then on our left, so right now on our left, is justice. Justice has a sword and scales in her hands. She is just like the members of the city council. And at the very top is another bird that is a pelican. Pelican was a medieval symbol for self-sacrifice. If you look closely at the bird, it is tearing open its stomach if it's self-sacrificing, like the members of the city council, which was very much holy here in Nuremberg, right? But they also used eminence necessary to leave the city, because the only part of this building that survived the bombings are the torture chambers that are still in the building. It's not as holy as prisons, as always, unfortunately. And maybe one more thing, the head and shoulders of a man holding this entire structure. His name was Jacob Wolf, who was a sculptor and architect who was responsible for building this and this building. And if you look at his expression, his face, it's a bit strange, right? His mouth open. And we believe that that's the way he made himself, because he wasn't paid fully for his work. And he was not happy about it. Today, this building doesn't serve as a town hall, because we have a new one building down. But there are meeting rooms, there are restaurants, and the building also has the Nurenberg rooms. Any questions? Excuse me? See that. This on Next question. Merchants going to town. So after the war, I would say today, roommates on long stands. So the main square now in Nuremberg, of course, if you look around restaurants, cafes over there, we have the Church of Our Lady here on the main square with the statue of Charles the Third. And here, that's what you're in a trial. One person was here, lived in Wickline, and moved right there on the corner. Or the other corner, right there, with the house, the stripe around it, that you put in Flit. You walk out of that corner right there, the third or the fourth, and of course, restaurants already talked about tourist information. Most important information. Which is hours in 5 minutes before 5 o'clock. All the other groups will be together. You'll just be meanwhile, that's when possibly the same bus. 5 minutes. The shopping ladies happens mostly in the center of the that's what a shopping is for me. I mean,
Well,
suggestions.
it's your tipple.
My wife should know what the normal. Before I say goodbye, when I give with one house. It's about the beautiful fountain kind. This is a copy of the film. Blacksmith been working on fountain offensive. He was working on it back then. He worked on it with a student. They worked on the village of wishes in these stories. The master had a beautiful daughter. And of course, after some time, the student fell in love with the daughter. She was stunning at the end, but asked the master for her hand. Well, it's the only child of this man. So he said, I'm burning. That's what we say. Look, sorry. Young man got upset to me. He got so upset with his son as well. So if you remember, from the left, foot, the heart, see what's around one face. And turn away. You wish for something. You wish just as I steer house since two. It's something. Chance. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. You enjoyed the 2 weeks on the meeting in Nuremberg. If you have questions or comments, enjoy the rest of the conversation. This way, and maybe the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The picture.
The big plaza or square in Nuremberg.
Allah razı olsun güzel.
Bei Cannstatt gibt es auch. Aber wir mögen schon drauf. Achso. Wir sind in Nürnberg jetzt nicht immer nicht alt. Aber muss der nicht sein, rein.
You sure you want to sign up for this?
Aber einmal war das in Köln, dann ist der, glaube ich, meine
Try this. Superfood. You want a fresh one?
Yeah. Hey, you don't have time. There's a lot of lineup. You gotta get in line.
Okay.
No, no. Well, Tim call it. Buy a fresh one. Oh.
Hello.